Despite the title of this video, none of it stopped me from grabbing these Mosaic promos while at Gen Con. Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and this video is why I don't chase promos. Why I don't pursue promos, chase promos, try to track them all down, despite the fact that I generally do have an all-in mentality when it comes to board games, to Kickstarters, to getting all the expansions I could possibly ever need, with some minor exceptions, which may or may not factor into this conversation in this video. But why don't I feel that way with promos? Why do I make the lowest possible amount of effort when it comes to tracking down promos? I'll get them. I didn't track these down. I happened to be playing Mosaic. I was playing Mosaic at Gen Con, and these were right there, and I was like, well, I really like Mosaic, and I'm right here, so we can go ahead and do that. This over here, this Vindication promo, another promo I pulled off the shelf. Usually my promos are in the games already. I happen to have these not. This was something that somebody dumped a bunch of promos in front of me one time and said, hey, you want any of these? And I was like, no, wait, Vindication, yes I do. I may have another copy of it coming, I don't know. I did actually order the promo pack for Vindication because they made it easy. And I think that's the key thing for me. I only get promos when it's easy. I only get promos when it's easy to get my hands on them in some way, shape, and form, whether the cost, whether the accessibility, if in some way you remove the barrier to entry to a degree in which it just makes sense to grab the promo for the game I want, sure, I get it. But I don't track them down. And usually when it comes to board games, I have that all-in mentality. When it comes to Kickstarters, I have a genuinely hard time thinking of Kickstarters that I backed but didn't go all in on gameplay content, at least. I don't always get the playmats or the extras or the art book or things like that. But on gameplay content, I have to think really hard about the amount of times I backed a Kickstarter and did not go all in. I think one time was Madara. Madara, I did not get all 3 acts at once. I just got the first act. I called it a day. That was one of the only times I've not gone all in, and I can't think of others. I'm sure they exist. It certainly happened. I know I can list multiple times where I intended to just get the base pledge, but I always end up converting and changing my mind and getting the all-in. I remember Trudvang Legends, a Kickstarter I wasn't even that interested in from Come On. And I was like, you know what? I'll just get the base pledge. They're always a good value. That's worthwhile. I backed it all in. It's still not here yet, but I did back it all in, although it is starting to ship, so maybe it's here by the time you see this video. Honestly, could be, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll be an unboxing before you even see this video. I don't know. What I do know is that I tend to want it all. And I don't care about tracking down all the promos. And that, to me, was an interesting conversation. To me. I don't know who else finds an interesting conversation, but to me it's an interesting conversation, especially considering how prevalent promos are. And I think we're seeing an uptick in more and more promotional material for board games. I think it's a combination of the ecosystem in general supports itself. We're seeing a lot of content creators running Kickstarters, and content creators running Kickstarters want promos from publishers they've worked with for games, although we are seeing a bit of a backswing on that as well, in the sense that because more and more content creators want these, now we're seeing a lot of companies who do their content creator promos for whichever particular Kickstarter you're in, which also makes it harder for me as a backer, as a consumer, because if I want to support the Dice Town, I want to support Man vs. Meeple, and I want to support Heavy Cardboard, or whoever's running a Kickstarter with promos, there's only so many copies of Alicorn I need from Lost Ruins of Arnak before I'm like, just this is ridiculous already. So they're making it even harder, which honestly is a good starting point for this conversation. For me, it's the idea that promos are harder. They're more work, there's not enough reward, and they're not always as appealing as gameplay content, and so I end up forcing myself to just not care about getting it all. I think before we go down that rabbit hole, the list of reasons of why promos are just less compelling than gameplay content to me, even though promos are gameplay content, they have rules and things on them. There's reasons. Gain 1 or 1 if you have none. There's terms for this thing, but I think of them as colors when it comes to Vindication. I think it's courage or strength. I can't remember that. I know how to play the game. I just don't remember the specific 6 labels of the 6 resource cubes. The yellow one and the orange one. Gain 1 or 1 if you have none. So yeah, that's a promo here. Then we have Bridge over here. Bridge from Mosaic, plus 2 tax and terror production. Your military units may move 2 regions. That's fun. That's a good one over here to get. That's going to be a technology you can buy from the card row. We have gears. Immediately take a work action. There's rules. There's gameplay content here. The reason I want it all when it comes to board games is already irrational. Let's start with that as a baseline. Because most of the time I don't need it all. And most of the time I get it all knowing I don't need it all, knowing that I'll get rid of some of it all, knowing that I'll probably get rid of the game before I ever play it all. But I wanted it all. I wanted to get my hands on it because I like owning board games. I like owning the board games that I love specifically. I like owning all the content for the board games that I love. Burn Cycle and Ship Theory Games just had their recent campaign, and I got the extra stuff. I don't know when I'll need it. I have plenty of gameplay content. I don't play Burn Cycle enough compared to other AAA games anyways that I need it all, but I like having all the stuff for the games that I want. There is a degree of completionist in me around these things. And I'm not trying to encourage this behavior. If anything, I would say I would actively disencourage it, disincentivize it. I'm not going to disincentivize, I'm just going to discourage it. Discourage. I'm actively going to discourage this behavior in the sense that I generally am a fan of trying to get the things you think you'll actually play and not more. I think there are many people like myself who still want the more, and if you're willing to be a little bit irresponsible with your funds to get something that you love, by all means. I think we all have a degree of leeway in our lives, and if you have that degree of leeway, great, but it's not behavior I'd encourage. It's behavior that I am engaging in despite thinking it's illogical and irrational, although there are select times, the infrequent times in which having it all actually results in me utilizing more content. And then there's justification as well. In the case of Burn Cycle, I'll use those extra characters. I know I will. I don't need the extra stuff, but I'll use it, so I will dabble and touch it all, and I like having that flexibility. And then there's the fact that these things very often hold their value. I talk about that a lot on the channel as well. When I eventually do decide I'm done with a game, very often these all-in pledges, you can get your money back anyway. So I have the all-in pledge in case I love the game, in case I dive into it. I don't have to pay the aftermarket prices of trying to hunt down the Kickstarter content for Clue Let Me Die because I'm just playing it all. But then there's always that trade-off, that balance as far as having it versus owning it versus not playing it versus selling it. But I like having the stuff. I like that sense of completion. But logically, that sense of completion should extend to promotional material. If I love Lost Ruins of Arnak, why do I not want to track down every single Lost Ruins of Arnak promo ever? And the short answer is I do. I do want to track down every Lost Ruins of Arnak promo with a caveat. And the caveat is, to me, it's the sense of completion that is the thing I seek. Not the sense of more, the sense of completion. Once I want the thing, once I love the game, I want all of the game. And once I can't have all of the game, then I can retreat. I can sit there and redraw the battle lines. Because once I don't have it all, to me it's not that important to have anything more than the amount of content I need. If I can have all of Burn Cycle, I want all of Burn Cycle. If for whatever reason there is, I cannot have all of Burn Cycle, I am perfectly content with the Burn Cycle content that I will play. The base game, maybe a robot pack, call it a day, that should be plenty for me. And so for me it is fairly binary. Completion is completion. A lack of completion is a lack of completion, and it allows me to redraw the battle lines. And the battle lines I've chosen to redraw are around the nature of promos versus everything else. If there's Kickstarter exclusive gameplay content, I want that. If there's expansion content, I want that. With caveats there, we'll get to the caveats shortly, but I'll get to the caveats in a second actually. But promos, since I won't get it all, I simply say, hey, whatever promos I get, and whatever ones I don't get, I won't get, and we'll call it a day. As far as expansions, this is an infrequent one, but it does happen. There are times where I play an expansion and I find that the expansion is not what I want out of a game, and that also allows me to remove the sense of completion. Because the sense of wanting it all for the sense of completion is around the sense of completion around the stuff I want. It's not there for stuff I don't want. That's a degree of irrationality that many will engage with, but I don't. I'm not judging. I just acknowledge I engage in a degree of irrationality up to here. Those that engage up to here, I can't possibly judge because there's those below me over here who can judge me. There's no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone, or at least it should be, although it does depend on who you're watching this with. When it comes to gameplay content, expansion content that I don't like, there are infrequent times where I can point to where I said that's not for me. When I played Kemet and the Kemet Seth expansion that turns Kemet into a one versus many, and I played it and I was like, that's not something I need to do again. I didn't like Kemet Seth. I played it twice and I thought it was a 6-hour-long version of Kemet that marginally improved on the Kemet experience. I did like it, I did. But it tripled the playtime of Kemet for a marginally better experience. I was like, 2 times was enough. The first time was enough. The second time was just because maybe the first time was only so long because it was the first time. No, this first time was long and the second time was long too. So we wrapped it up and I got rid of Kemet Seth. I don't need that expansion. This is true for Foundations of Rome as well. Foundations of Rome has a solo mode, and I played that solo mode, and I did not care for it. I thought there's never an opportunity in which I would play the Garden of Ceres expansion for Foundations of Rome, and so I simply moved on with my life and said, I'm good, I don't need to play this. And so I got rid of that. Once I don't like an expansion, I will get rid of it. If I haven't played it yet, even if the reviews are mediocre, well, I still want to try, I still want to see. But the sense of completion only takes me so far. This applies to box sets as well. A good example would be the gift series. The gift series of games in which you have Yinch, you have Gif, you have Tsar, you have Dvan, you have Zertz. You have all these games, and there was a point in time which I liked all of them, and so I liked 5 of them, I think, and so I had all 6, and I was like, why do I have a game that I don't like and I'm not going to play? And so I got rid of it because that felt a bridge too far. And slowly but surely, other games in the gift series dropped. At this point, I have Yinch and Tsar. Those 2 have still held up, but the rest of them are good in various ways, but there's always good, and I always make choices around what I think is best and not just good, and so there's always that trade-off. But that's the background and framework to other senses of completion that we haven't really gotten to. As far as promos, going back to what I said already, when it comes to promos, my line is, once I can't have it all, then I don't need it all. And so I'm going to go through the various reasons as to why I feel I can't have it all with promos, each one being more damning than the last. And we'll get into that, what I mean by that, because it's not really that I can't have it all for some of these. For some of these, it's just an additional barrier to entry. But you can get past barriers to entry. Time, energy, attention, money, you can get past these things if you're willing to. But let's go down the rabbit hole of the various reasons why I don't seek out promos, why I don't believe I will get them all, and so why I stop even trying. The first is the cost and benefit of promo cards. Generally, when it comes to gameplay content, when it comes to expansion content, when it comes to Kickstarter content, there's a cost to those things, but I think the cost-benefit is very often worthwhile. When it comes to promotional material, where you can pay $5 for 2 or 3 cards, I just don't think that ratio is there most of the time. Now, sometimes you can get it cheaper. There are times you can get it cheaper, and those times I'm more likely to get them, but the cost-benefit of promo cards, especially when you factor in how many promotional cards there can be for certain games, and I find games are binary to a degree. There's games that don't have any promotional material, there's games that have 1 or 2 promo cards, and then there's games that have like 15 promo cards, and every single time there's a new one coming up because they can so easily be adapted to have another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and by the time you add up the cost of all these promo cards, you're out the price of 2 or 3 games to add 20 cards to your game. Which seems insane to me. It just seems like it's not worth it. Whatever the game is, Dominion, Terraforming Mars, Mosaic, Lost Ruins of Arnak, pick whatever game is currently the flavor of the month, and the slow procedural burn and churn of Tiny Towns has so many promos. AEG does a ton of promos. Fun fact, by the way, at some point in the future I may be offering some AEG promos, because apparently they're giving promos to content creators to get rid of, or to sell, or to give to patrons, or all those things. By the way, I have a Patreon. If you want to check that out, link down below. Appreciate it. But don't let my lack of interest in promos dissuade you from trying to collect the promos from me, he says, ironically. There are lots of games that have lots of promos, and I just don't feel it's worthwhile to seek out every single one from a pure cost benefit. But if this were the only reason, I don't think it would be enough. I think my sense of completion would overrule the logic around the cost benefit of 20 promo cards in your game. Which brings to the second one, which again is not a pure barrier, but just the sheer trouble of tracking them down. When it comes to backing all in on a Kickstarter, you know what that is. That's going to be the extra, it's not in terms of cost is its own factor, but in terms of the difficulty level, that involves changing your pledge. In particularly difficult situations, it involves double-checking the pledge manager after the campaign to see what they changed, because you know something's different, but you have to track down what exactly it is, and so there's a little bit of work involved. Maybe when it comes to expansions, you have to buy the expansions as they come out, and so every year and a half there's another expansion, you have to buy that and acquire it, and it's a little bit more work. That work exists, but it's all doable. Promos have the least consistent life cycle of consistency and availability as to how you attract them down. Even an LCG. Even if you're tracking on LCG, you can go ahead and once a year go ahead and grab the latest batch from Miniature Market, or sign up for a service like, I can't remember the name of the company, Team Covenant, where you can sign up for a service where they send you all the LCG packs as they go. There are ways to make LCGs, which I would argue are the closest thing to promos in terms of difficulty. There's still ways to make the acquisition of an LCG pack by pack to be easier, and promos have none of that. Some promos are available on the Board Game Geek market. Some promos are available at conventions only. Some promos are available directly from the publisher's website. Some you can only have gotten from the last Kickstarter. Some you can only get from the next Kickstarter. Some are available when you back that content creator's Kickstarter. Nothing to even do with the game. And some of them are going to be cross-promotional material that when you buy Space Base, you get a promo for Tiny Towns. When you buy Tiny Towns, you get a promo from Space Base. The degree of complete chaos as far as tracking down promos is a nightmare. It doesn't mean you can't get some of them, but it means trying to be a completionist, trying to track them all down, especially when you count that exclusive, Grey Hulk, Marvel United promo that it costs you $100 if you didn't go to Comic-Con yourself. It's not going to run you $100 to get your hands on it. These things get so insane so quickly. Doesn't mean you can't get them. It just means that the idea of trying to track them all down feels like a job. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like an assignment. And that already has me significantly less interested in getting them all. and see previous and soon to be repeated statement about once I can't get it all, I don't feel the need to track down anything past what is easy and convenient and in front of me. The third point I kind of touched upon to a degree, but it is relevant as well, which is they're always ongoing and inconsistent in their ongoingness. One is the pure where things are, one is the cost, two is where they are, and three is the always ongoing aspect, the when they are, with the fact that there's never really a release cycle of any reliability. Similar to what I said already, same basic notes, the idea that there's a content creator's Kickstarter, there's a point in time, there's a new game that's unrelated to the prior game, they're always ongoing. In no predictable points in time, and no predictable reliability, adding to the aspect where there's a trouble tracking them down, making them hard to get their hands on it. I won't harp too heavily on this because I think it is heavily related to the general idea of tracking them down. Which means I'll skip more to point number 4, which is issues with rules. Promo cards, more than anything else, I find can have rules inconsistencies that are particularly annoying when you try to look up a rule for a card because your rulebook has all the stuff, your details of everything, and you can't find it because it's not in there. I'm looking at you, Santorini. I'm looking at you, Vindication, as well. There are times where they have little guides as far as what the rules are for various cards, but when the promos are there, those guides are useless because the guides are now incomplete. You spend a few minutes trying to find out what the rules are for the Spotlight Enchantress, and you can't. By the way, the rules are very simple. I'm not actually complaining here. But you look up the rules for the Spotlight Enchantress, and you cannot find any answer because it's not in the back of the rulebook. Why would it be? It's a promotional card. It would be clogging up the back of the rulebook. You try to figure out what your character in Santorini does because the iconography is not enough, and now you have a card in front of you, and you've just wasted... Ooh, you have the Spotlight Hotshot, too. This feels like it's probably a team of people. I don't know who these are. Don't know. I don't know who these are. Anyways, going back to it, yes, you have these aspects of rules that add further degrees of lack of clarity to whatever game you're playing that further adds to a reason why I don't want the promo. See, the first 3 reasons were complexities in terms of how easy it is to get the promo, but when you get really to the heart of the matter, it comes down to the fact that sometimes I won't want a promo because I feel it is not helpful, not useful, and that already adds to, again, to the degree of taking away my sense of completion, and once you're taking away my sense of completion, well, then do I really care? And the 5th reason, and I think possibly the most impactful reason for me, coming back to the Spotlight Hotshot and the Spotlight Enchantress, I don't like in my games, and no shade to any content creators, no shade to anyone who wants this, no shade to the companies, but I don't like in my games promos that in any way are reminiscent of real life behind the promo. I don't like it when a promo card looks like a content creator. I don't like it when a promo card says something related to the content creator. This Spotlight Hotshot, Spotlight Enchantress, they might be content creators. I'm cool with that. Do you know why I'm cool with that? Because I can't tell. I cannot tell who these are, what they're for. They don't in any way make me think or break the immersiveness of thinking, hey, I'm playing Vindication, but Tom Vassell just showed up in my game. I understand people like that. I do. It's not said with any shade, but for me, I don't. On a personal level, I don't like that. I like hidden references. If you ever see me as a promotional thing in any game, it's usually because you didn't realize it was me until something happened and came along, and eventually you're kind of like, is that Alex? Maybe? I am not comfortable being in a game in an obvious sense. I am only comfortable ever being in a game in a hidden reference sense. It's cool. It is cool. As a content creator, it's cool to be like, hey, my favorite game has me in it. That's very, very cool. Or my favorite games or whatever it is. But I only allow it to happen so far, at least as far as I'm in control of it. I've only allowed it to happen in a way where it's so subtle that only a handful of people have ever even realized or noticed, because I like being in games I do. Selfishly, it's something, it's nice, it's fun, but I also do not like it when my immersion in a game is broken, and so I refuse to allow myself to be an immersion breaking point for someone else as well. And the net result of that is that means that you pick whatever game has promo cards, and somewhere along the way, there's a Man vs. Meeple Space Station, there's a Dice Tower hat as an object you can acquire, there's people that look like content creators. These things exist, and when they exist, I don't want that promo. Not like I would take it for free. I actively do not want it. I would throw it out or give it away. It's not meant to be critical of the content creators. It's meant to be what I'm looking for in a game. I do not like it when Kickstarters have pledges where you can draw yourself into the game unless it's done well. Feed the Kraken is an excellent example. Feed the Kraken is a game that managed to incorporate real people into the game in such beautifully well done artwork that you would never necessarily know. Chronicles of Junagar has a whole bunch of people that have been drawn into the storybooks and you would never know the real people. I'm cool with that. I'm not against people being in games, I'm against my immersion being broken, and so that's the balance and the trade-off I personally go for. Which means, if I wanted to collect promos, I already know that there's a giant percentage of them. I don't know what percentage it is, but I'd guess somewhere in the range of 15 to 20% of promos are in some way correlated to some degree of immersion breaking something. Even if it's just humor-based, by the way. Even if it's something to do with content creators, it might just be a degree of humor that breaks my personal sense of immersion, and then I am not interested. I don't want it, I don't need it, I'm not going to track it down, and it's not helpful to me. And once I can't have it all, I don't need it all. And so I don't chase down promo cards, in general. Now, it doesn't mean I don't get them. Case in point, I do get them. I do get promos. I do get them from conventions, from people, from whatever. I backed all the promos that Vindication had in their last Kickstarter. Anything they had is a 2019, 2020, 2021 promo pack. All those promo packs I added to the cart. I still want more gameplay content. I still like more variety. I still like seeing the cards. Those are all things that I still generally enjoy. But my thing is, I can get over the rules issue. Rules are sometimes an issue, sometimes not. So I can get over that. I can get over the cost usually. Usually. It depends on just how bad it is, but usually I'm willing to pay the cost. I like having all the stuff for the games that I love. The ones I'm not willing to get over is I don't like the trouble of tracking things down. I don't like the continued question of when and where and how to get the next promos, and I definitely don't like obvious people on my cards. When you make it easy for me, when they're in front of me at a convention, when they're reasonably priced, when they're part of a Kickstarter and I can hit add to cart and grab the promos that I need, that's where I'll get promos. I'm not saying I don't back or get or acquire promotional cards or content or materials. It's just that contrasted with the way I typically go all in, contrasted with the way I typically want it all, when it comes to promos, I just don't care enough. And that's the conversation. Just why I want everything, but not all the promos. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.